Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Glad to have you along today. Thanks a lot for giving this a 5-star review and a written review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you get an opportunity to do it, it's always helpful to the operation here. We're grateful that you do that and let other people know about the podcast. You have helped this thing grow by leaps and bounds with your support over the years. We're so thankful. And we also can't do it without your support of our sponsors. And the fact that we have great sponsors in the podcast means everything to the operation. So if you enjoy listening to the podcast, if you don't mind rating it, and if you don't mind supporting great sponsors like our title sponsor, John Ruhlman. John has been with us now for a few years, and he is absolutely the best when you're looking for the best prices and the best coverage in health insurance. usmedicalplan.com is his website. Now, all you need to do is set aside, let's call it a half an hour. Reach out, usmedicalplan.com, or call 877-410-4321 and tell them what you're paying right now and what you think about your coverage right now. Or maybe you have some questions. You're just not really happy with your current health insurance situation. They'll talk you through your options. And here's the thing. At US Medical Plan, they know 100 different private health insurance companies. So they're going to get you the best possible price and never going to skimp on coverage. I know a lot of people think, well, if it's cheaper, it's not going to be as good a coverage. Not true. In fact, what you'll find when you work with US Medical Plan is oftentimes you're paying more. You're paying much more than you should be for health insurance for not as great a coverage. 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com.
Hey, welcome in on this Tuesday edition. I am live in your nation's capital this morning on double super secret assignment. I'll tell you more about that in due course. But we get to kick off a show wherever you happen to be. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, if you're listening on great stations all across the country, J.D. Vance, our vice president, is speaking at this very moment in India. It's rare that we get to carry live coverage of anything at this hour of the day. And so we thought we'd join J.D. Vance in progress here, listen in a little bit on what he's saying, and then we'll have some comments on the backside of this. Join J.D. Vance, here we go, in India this morning.
There's much that we can create, much that we can do together. We believe that American energy can help realize India's nuclear power production goals, and this is very important, as well as its AI ambitions. Because as the United States knows well, and I know that India knows well, there is no AI future without energy security and energy dominance. And that brings me to my final point of collaboration. I believe that the technological collaboration between our countries is going to extend well beyond defense and energy. The U.S.-India Trust Initiative that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have launched will be a cornerstone of the partnership in the future. It'll build on billions of dollars of planned investments that American companies have already announced across India. In the years to come, we're going to see data centers, pharmaceuticals, undersea cables, and countless other critical goods being developed and being built because of the American and Indian economic partnership. And I'll say it again, I think that our nations have so much to gain by investing in one another. America investing in India, and of course India investing in the United States of America. And I know that Americans, our people, are excited about that prospect, and that President Trump and I are looking forward to stronger ties. Americans want further access to Indian markets. This is a great place to do business, and we want to give our people more access to this country. And Indians, we believe, will thrive from greater commerce in the United States. This is very much a win-win partnership. It certainly will be far into the future. And as I know this audience knows better than most, neither Americans nor Indians are alone in looking to scale up their manufacturing capacity. The competition extends well beyond cheap consumer goods and into munitions, energy, infrastructure, and all sorts of other cutting-edge technologies. I believe that if our nations fail to keep pace, the consequences for the Indo-Pacific, but really the consequences for the entire world, will be quite dire. And this again is where India and the United States have so much to offer one another. We've got great hardware, the leading artificial intelligence hardware in the world. You have one of the most exciting startup technology infrastructures anywhere in the world. There's a lot to be gained by working together. And this is why President Trump and I both welcome India's leadership in a number of diplomatic organizations, but of course in the Quad. We believe a stronger India means greater economic prosperity, but also greater stability across the Indo-Pacific, which is of course a shared goal for all of us in this room, and is a shared goal for both of our countries. I want to close with one last story, or maybe a couple of stories. So, my son Ewan is 7 years old. He's our firstborn son, and yesterday, after we had dinner at the Prime Minister's house, the food was so good and the Prime Minister was so kind to our three children that Ewan came up to me afterwards and he said, "Dad, I think maybe I could live in India." But I think after about 90 minutes in the Jaipur Sun today at the Great Palace, he suggested that maybe we should move to England. So you take the good with the bad here. But I want to talk about Prime Minister Modi because I think he's a special person. I first met Prime Minister Modi at the AI Action Summit in February, and we had a lot of important discussions on AI and other policies to prepare for. And the Prime Minister also managed to figure out that my son Vivek was actually turning 5 years old on the trip. This was in Paris just a couple of months ago. So think about this. Amid a huge international policy conference, he took the time to stop by where I was staying, wish our second son, Vivek, a happy birthday, and even bring him a gift. Ush and I were both genuinely touched by his graciousness, and we've been even more impressed by his warmth since we arrived in India. Now, it's interesting. Some of you may know that when you're a politician, your kids spend almost as much time in the limelight as you do, and the great things about kids is they are brutally honest. They're brutally honest with everybody, whether you want them to be or not. And our 7-year-old, our 5-year-old, and our 3-year-old baby girl, Mirabelle, it's interesting. They've only really attached themselves to, they've only really liked, I should say, they've only really built a rapport with two world leaders. The first, of course, is President Trump. He just has a certain energy about him. But Prime Minister Modi, it's the exact same thing. Our kids just like him. And I think that because kids are such good, strong of characters, I just like Prime Minister Modi too. And I think it's a great foundation for the future of our relationship. I could tell when Prime Minister Modi came over a couple of months ago, and I believe today that he is a serious leader who has thought deeply about India's future prosperity and security, not just for the rest of his time in office, but over the next century. And I want to end by making a simple, overarching point. We are now officially 1/4 into the 21st century. 25 years in 75 years to go. And I really believe that the future of the 21st century is going to be determined by the strength of the United States-India partnership. I believe, thank you. I believe that if India and the United States work together successfully, we are going to see a 21st century that is prosperous and peaceful. But I also believe that if we fail to work together successfully, the 21st century could be a very dark time for all of humanity. So I want to say, it's clear to me, as it is to most observers, that President Trump, of course, intends to rebalance America's economic relationship with the rest of the world. That's going to fundamentally will cause profound changes within our borders in the United States, but of course with other countries as well. But I believe that this rebalancing is going to produce great benefits for American workers. It's going to produce great benefits for the people of India. And because our partnership is so important to the future of the world, I believe President Trump's efforts, joined of course by the whole country of India and Prime Minister Modi, will make the 21st century the best century in human history. Let's do it together. God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, that is a rare treat. We don't typically get to join in progress live comments, particularly live comments from our leaders like President Trump or Vice President Vance. Vice President Vance in India, speaking live there on the Chris Stigall Show this morning. Thanks a lot for joining us again. If you're just tuning in or you're just checking it out, you're like, what's going on here? Yeah, Vance is in India speaking today, and it was an intriguing speech. I'm glad we joined it because Vance is a guy, first of all, to keep a sharp eye on, obviously, because he's probably going to run after Trump's term here and try to take over. And in doing so, Vance making the case on the global stage, I would argue right now, making the better case on the global stage than even President Trump. I think that he is the best card Trump has to play internationally, and Trump continues to play it, sending him out. And he gives these barn burner presentations everywhere he goes. The Munich speech being the most significant I think he's given to date. I think maybe one of the most significant American speeches I've ever seen on foreign soil. Truth be told, what he said in Munich. But this speech is right up there. It's very, very interesting what he had to say. And I was actually going to talk a little about the economy this morning, so I'm glad to listen in. It is abundantly clear that J.D. Vance and the White House broadly are trying to communicate to India, hey, guys, you, us, right now, we got to be right here, arm in arm together, because your neighbors, they're coming at us. And they don't mean us well. In fact, I have a headline today in front of me. China vows to punish countries that agree to Trump trade deals. Why do you think J.D. Vance is in India this morning delivering these remarks and so lovingly commenting to the people of India that we want a partnership? He said, I think the future of the 21st century, we're a quarter into the 21st century. The next 75 years are going to be determined by the strength of our partnership, that is the United States and India. Now, this is meant, I believe, as a direct shot at India's neighbors, China. Obviously, we're in the middle of massive global trade discussions right now with each country. Yes, he's trying to further the discussion with Modi and the Indian government to make sure the trade imbalance doesn't exist between the two countries. He's also talking about the energy opportunities, the development, the growth, the defense manufacturing that we can engage in on behalf of India to protect their borders and their shores. This is a big one. I think it's a far bigger speech. A lot of people kind of shrug their shoulders and think vice presidents are kind of sent off to give speeches in foreign countries and they're really not of much consequence. J.D. Vance is maybe the most consequential vice president we've seen in a very, very long time. And what Trump is trying to do in realigning the world, Vance is going to have a huge part to play in that. More in just a second on the Chris Stigall Show. Glad to have you here from Washington, D.C. this morning. Live look at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania from the Jersey side. Those of you watching on the Salem News Channel, thanks a lot for watching. Take us along with you. You can click Watch Live on the Salem News Channel app, and you can see everything. I'm in the D.C. studios today. Why? I can't tell you yet. But it's for a cool reason, and I'll tell you about it, I think, tomorrow. The reason I don't want to say anything today is because if I told you what it is today, what we have learned in doing this show for a great many years is the things we think we know, we don't always know until after they happen. And then some surprise things happen that we don't always intend to have happen. And if I tried to tell you what I knew was coming today, tomorrow I'd show up and go, yeah, that thing didn't happen. So I'm not over or under promising anything, but tomorrow should be an interesting one, and I hope you'll be here for it like you are today. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're in D.C. today and tomorrow. You know, I'll give you a hint. We're getting closer to the 100-day observation of Donald Trump's first 100 days in office. In fact, next week, Fast Eddie, I guess we've made this official. A week from tonight, my colleague Larry Elder and I are going to be doing a special show on the Salem News Channel. And I think on his show, too, on the radio. Yes or no? Or do you know that?
As far as I know, it is a simulcast, both on SNC and SRN.
That'll be
told otherwise.
I think 8 p.m. Eastern, I believe, 7 Central, and so on. You people in the West, I never mean to discount you. I can't do the math, all right? So 8 in the East, and then you count back. But correct. Larry and I are going to be doing a 100 Days episode celebrating the Trump administration's first 100 days. And one of the big challenges, of course, is righting the economy. And people are freaking out. I mean, I get it. I got a text yesterday from a friend of mine. He goes, look, Stigall, I am 100% all in on Trump. You know that. But I'm getting really, really tired of seeing this stuff. And I got Let me see. Here's the post yesterday. Hang on. So, it said of the 1,000 point drops, yes, the Dow has dropped 1,000 points 11 times in history. 4 of those have been since, quote, Liberation Day. So, Ed, my question to you, I always like to take your pulse. It's funny because every time I take Fast Eddie's pulse, I get visceral listener reaction, either harumphing you or chiding you. So I'm taking your pulse here. You're an investor. A lot of us are investors, meaning we have 401ks or whatever, IRAs or whatever. You got your money. Maybe you're watching it. Maybe you're not. You're a younger guy, so you've got time. 4 1,000 point drops in the market since Liberation Day. 11 times that's happened in history. And a friend of mine sent me a note and said, I'm getting sick of this. You say?
It depends on how close he is to retirement, because Chris, you're right. I'm still okay. I've lost about 5K since Liberation Day, but I have time, obviously, to make that back. Some people don't really have time to make that back or have to make other plans. So, and you asked me early on, Chris, like how long is this going to last? Is the public sentiment how patient? That's correct. And I said maybe about 6 months. So I still think we got to get this. We got to get whatever the plan is. It's got to get done soon.
And what is most important in this equation, in my view? What can we absolutely control right here and now? What have I said 1,000 times? It happens right here in this town, and that is the one big, beautiful bill. Of course, media doesn't want to talk about it. Politicians don't want to talk about it. They'd rather talk about anything else. They want to talk about Abreu Garcia in El Salvador. They want to talk about what Trump's doing on the White House lawn. They want to talk about Pete Hegseth. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that the one thing that could actually better all of us in a snap is almost non-existent in news coverage? Have you noticed that? I have. I'm the only one, and I normally don't say this, but I'm actually going to say it this time. I may be the only figure in media who is regularly saying, if we do not pass this one big, beautiful bill and soon, it is a disaster. Donald Trump's legacy is going to be hitched, for better or worse, to this one big, beautiful bill. The market will continue to soften if aggressive regulatory, aggressive spending, and aggressive tax cuts are not codified. Now, damn it, now. It has to happen now. And these Republicans in Congress who are fighting and slap fighting, and I don't want to do this, and that's too much, and this percentage, you people are headed for a political slaughter. Every last one of you Republicans. In a swing district, a mildly blue district, a purple district, if you do not get this bill passed, and if you don't do it soon, the economy is going to continue to trend downward in the immediate, and we're not going to have a lot of time to rebound. And people who have lost thousands in the market won't be able to recover in time to get those gains back by the time we hit next November. Now, we've still got a runway. I'm not panicked, but I am indignant. I'm getting really impatient. Republicans in Congress must act. Regulatory, tax, and spending cuts have to happen now. Now. We'll talk with Steve Moore, our chief economist, a little later in the show about these developments economically. I realize here again that this is going to be a story that probably has more attention and more meaning in your personal life than most of these stories that the Democrats are consumed with right now, like saving illegal aliens from prisons and reading Drag Time Story Hour in libraries. The Supreme Court's about to take that up, too. I'm fascinated, actually, that the left does not talk more about the economy. I really am. I said that yesterday. I mean, if I were Democrats and I were advising Democrats right now, I'd talk about the economy. But why don't they? Why can't they? Because we're here in large measure because of them. Inflation went sky high because of them. Out of control spending, wasteful spending. Why don't Democrats ultimately want to talk about spending? Why don't they want to talk about the economy? Because if they do, it'll come right back to them. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, USAID, and all the other wasteful non-government organizations that have been siphoning your tax money and mine. Again, that's why I get back to the big, beautiful bill is so critically important. From Thomson Reuters this morning, Republicans scored a major victory by passing their budget resolution. To refresh your memory, this step was needed to kickstart the all-important reconciliation process, which allows Congress to pass a budget-related bill with only a simple majority. Perhaps the biggest obstacle, they write, now is disagreement between the House and Senate Republicans over spending cuts. In fact, the budget resolution almost failed in the House over this single issue. The Senate's version of the resolution, ultimately adopted, established a floor of $4 billion in spending cuts. The House wants $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. Now, we've asked several people far smarter than me whether it's achievable, $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. And everybody has resoundingly laughed in my face and said, is it achievable? It's easy. Of course, $1 trillion in spending cuts is easy to do. Over $1 trillion. More than that, as a matter of fact. Steve Moore said so. Despite Senator Thune's statement, some Republicans questioning whether he's actually committed to cutting $1.5 trillion. And then there are tax reform goals. Although some simplification is the goal of tax reform, chances are the reconciliation bill will add more complexity to the tax code, they write. Congress's primary task is to extend the Trump tax cuts. However, some provisions like the SALT tax, that's the state and local tax deduction, and this is a big bone of contention for a lot of conservatives. Now, Fast Eddie, we got a lot of listeners in New Jersey, for instance. I know we got a lot of New York listeners, too. We've got a lot of listeners in high-tax states, California also. You people that are in high-tax states, many of you enjoy this SALT deduction, state and local tax. You're going to hear this come up a lot, SALT. And you've been able to go to your accountant or when you do your taxes, deduct the high taxes you pay in your respective states on your federal income taxes in the past. Conservatives, Fast Eddie, say, that's your problem, not ours. We shouldn't absorb your high tax penalties in your states. We conservative states don't want to do it, so we're not going to let that be included anymore. This is a major bone of contention for Republicans. Where are you on that?
Oh, I mean, if I'm not in the position, like I don't have the high tax deduction thing, so I'm against it. Like you can get rid of it. I'm with the red states.
So
man.
You've got neighbors right over the river there from Philadelphia who say, hey, yeah. I'm over here in New Jersey. I'm getting soaked by Phil Murphy and these Democrats that run our state. I need to be able to deduct my high property taxes and my high taxes in New Jersey to save a couple of bucks. You say?
I didn't move to Jersey, man. I'm sorry.
Ooh, suck it is what you say, Garden Staters. Suck it, says Fast
Sorry,
Eddie.
guys. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is a big deal, whether that SALT deduction is going to stay or not. Adding to the complexity of tax reform, Trump's promise to exempt tips, overtime pay, and Social Security benefits from federal income tax. This should not be hard. This absolutely has to happen. I don't care what your discussion is about SALT. Fine. Have the academic discussion about state and local income tax. It cannot be, listen to me, it cannot be a debate. There can be zero debate, Republicans. Not a single one of you can debate taking tips away from people who make overtime, or taking taxes away and taxes away from people who earn tips for a living. Overtime, tips, and then, of course, the most egregious of all, the idea that people are paying taxes on Social Security they collect as income. That is an absolute outrage. That is slam dunk easy. It is more than an 80-20 issue. It's probably a 90-10 issue. And you dopey Republicans, would you just listen to me for a minute? I'm not a paid political consultant, but I'll tell you this shouldn't be that hard to figure out. If you're able to go home to your respective districts, wherever you are, whichever district or state you represent, and say, guess what we did for you? You people that wait tables, you people that are in the service industry and work for tips, no more taxes on those. You people who earn overtime, and that's how you maybe buy Christmas presents, or you take that family vacation because you bust your butt working overtime, no more taxes on that anymore either. And by the way, you seniors who are on a set income for the rest of your days, no more taxing your Social Security as income. You've already paid into the system once. We're not going to tax you a second time on income that you've already paid into the government. That is a slam dunk. That's probably a 95-5 issue. Why would you even debate that? How can there be a single Republican? Well, Chris, we got to pay for it. We got to pay. Don't you love how they pay? Any government official who says we've got to pay for allowing you to keep more of your money, be very dubious. Beware of any government official who talks about your money as if it's something they have to figure out how to do without, and they have to somehow really strain to accommodate your savings. Screw that. If you, as a government representative, take my money and I want some of it back and you give it back and you say, well, if we give it back, we're going to have to figure out how to pay for it. The answer is always quit spending it. That's always the answer. Always, listen to me. There is never not an answer for how do we pay for giving you your money back as a taxpayer. Answer, stop spending it. It ain't hard. Everybody who keeps a household budget understands the way this works. You take in income, you pay bills. Whatever's left, that's yours to keep. Okay, so the government takes an income from our tax money. They want to give a little bit back. They don't want to take as much. And they say, but we've still got all these expenses. No, you don't. Not if you stop spending it. Not if you cut expenses. And the idea that there's a single Republican that actually thinks, oh boy, it's really going to be tough to achieve $1 trillion in cuts. Garbage. Elon Musk has shown the way with Doge. Hundreds of billions of dollars in a blink were discovered by the team at Doge. It should be like chewing gum easy to find these cuts. But, of course, members of Congress always like to be able to go home and relay to their constituents that they scored the big fish. They like to be able to say, we just secured $5 billion in this and such to build your this and such, that whatever it is, some bridge with their name on it or something. It's not as sexy to come home and say, hey, guys, trust me, we just made your lives a lot better by putting money back in your pocket. It's much easier for constituents to go home to their, for members of Congress to go home to their respective constituencies and say, I just scored you a $5 billion grant to build, I don't know, whatever, new libraries or new research center or a new bridge. Members of Congress love that stuff. The actual easier work of cutting spending and telling them that you get to keep a little more money in your own pocket, for some reason that's just not as sexy. It's not as flashy. They can't put their name on a placard or build a statue in their honor that will stay there in all eternity, I guess. But that's why J.D. Vance, and I'm glad we were able to start the show today with J.D. Vance's speech in India. It's a huge other component to this. This multi-legged stool is going to take J.D. Vance's goodwill tour around the country, stopping in places like India and convincing them, we need you to tear down these trade barriers between us. I think going forward in this new century, we're a quarter of the way into the new century, India, we can do big things together. We got all the energy you could ever need. We're leading in AI. We want to partner with you guys because let's be frank. I mean, he didn't say it quite like this, but let's be honest. We all understand. Some of the biggest brains in the world are coming out of India. I mean, check the pharmaceutical industry, check the sciences. The real strong academicians out there are coming out of the Indo-Pacific. We know that. Now, we've got the capability, we got the money, we got the energy, we got the resources. They have a lot of the brain power and the know-how. And Vance is saying, hey, join me here. I thought it really interesting, by the way, that he really leaned in to his kids. Did you notice how he kept mentioning specifically his son Vivek? That name, of course, a wink to the Indian people. Because his wife, of course, is the child of Indian parents. And he wants them to know that very personally, he himself married into an Indian family, and he wants them to know that going forward, they want a long-term partnership together. He said some really interesting things. He wants a stronger Quad. If you don't know what that is, that's Australia, Japan, India, and the United States, the Indo-Pacific, as it's known. He wants to strengthen that relationship. And again, mindful throughout this whole speech this morning, their neighbors, China. And China, as I told you earlier, has threatened, just yesterday, they threatened to take countermeasures against any country that agrees to trade deals with the United States. J.D. Vance was over there today to tell the Indian people, don't sweat your neighbors. We got you. But we need you all in. You got to come in, join us, full-throated endorsement, full-throated partnership. You give us that, and we can go big places. We lead the world in AI. You got the people who know how to do it. Let's partner. We've got the energy. Let's partner. We can build you defense equipment like nobody else. Let's partner. And by the way, my family, my half-Indian family loves your prime minister and you guys. That got a roaring applause, by the way. This was wonderful diplomacy today by J.D. Vance, and it's absolutely critically important to Donald Trump's future plan. Meanwhile, back at home, Donald Trump is going to be meeting with Walmart, Home Depot, and Target today on tariffs, and specifically talking about maybe where there's some lifts or some stays he can put on certain tariffs and certain goods. They're concerned, as I know you are, about your portfolio or your savings right now and your buying power. Everybody's nervous and unsettled at this hour. Trump says, be patient, be cool, be calm. We got a fix coming, but it's going to be bumpy for a second. Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Now, I understand that now, if there was any kind of privacy left in my life, it's gone, but it was amazing. Here in Washington, D.C. this morning, folks flew in from my home base to Washington, D.C. We're at the Salem News Channel headquarters this morning in Washington, D.C. Glad to be with you. Be here for another couple of days, but catching the flight here yesterday, I experienced my first Fast Eddie TSA pre-check.
Wow. Excellent, man.
Yep.
Right through, or how was it?
Worth every nickel. Now, again, they may know everything about me. They may be tracking my every move right now. I already assume they were. But literally, you walk in, you set your briefcase on the thing, you walk through the magnetometer or whatever they call it, and you're all. It's like going to a concert. No more stripping, no more groping, nothing. Just right through, bing. It was over in a second. Worth every nickel I paid, worth the invasion of privacy. I don't care. I mean, you're going to have to go. You can't get on a plane without being fondled, groped, and stripping down anyway. So I figure, okay, I'd rather not suffer the indignity. I'll just pay the $80 for 5 years. Right through, Ed. It was the most wonderful experience ever yesterday. I endorse it.
No, I'm happy for you, man. I was actually going to ask, and I forgot to. I'm really excited because it's been a while. I my 5 years expired for the pre-check thing, so I'm considering renewing.
Oh, I highly encourage it. I mean, you used to travel quite a bit more than you do now. I am now traveling more than I ever have in my life. I mean, in the last 6 months, I've traveled more than I probably have in literally my entire life. And I said to my wife, I can't do it. The taking off of the belt and the shoes and and then the groping anyway. Like, I have no shoes, no belt, no pants on, and they're still like honk, honk. It's like, what more could you possibly, what do you want? So I'd had it, and I went through the whole deal. And so it's good. I will say, if you haven't considered it and you travel a great deal, I say do it. I know, for a lot of you that already traveled, you're like, well, Stigall, I did that years ago. You're way behind the 8 ball on it. I get it, but I don't know if it was. First of all, I thought it was much more expensive and cumbersome. I was actually sort of blown away at how quickly it all went. Like, I applied for it. They said, okay, come up and do the thing. I did the thing, and in 2 days, I was cleared and ready to go. It was literally, the whole thing took me 3 days. The longest part of it was driving to the place to get the stuff, the scan and the whole deal. That was it. So, anyway. Headline from the Washington Times this morning: first Republican lawmaker calls for removal of Hegseth. Now, remember what I said. Members of Congress, including, I'm sorry to say, some Republicans, would rather talk about anything else but putting more money back in your pocket. They'd rather talk about anything else. Chief among them, Representative Don Bacon, yesterday. Don Bacon is a weasel who represents the 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska. And he has been a representative of 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska for many terms now. And he's a former, well, before I get there, let me read the story, and then we'll play a guessing game. You ready, Ed? Put on your guessing game hat. We'll get to it in a second. Representative Don Bacon on Monday became the first Republican lawmaker to suggest that Pete Hegseth should be removed from the position. Don Bacon wants to remove Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. He's a Republican from Nebraska, Don Bacon. Okay, time to play a little guessing game. Why would a Republican from Nebraska want to remove Pete Hegseth from the Department of Defense as Secretary of Defense? A House Republican. Any guesses, Fast Eddie?
I have to imagine it's some of the committees or some of the earmarks that come through to Representative Bacon via the Defense Department?
Yeah. Would it interest you to note that Representative Bacon is a former brigadier general?
Uh-oh.
Would it interest you to note that the 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska is home to Offutt Air Force Base?
Getting closer, Chris, in my head.
Doing some math now, are you?
Yeah, I think so, yep.
So now all of a sudden, Dandy Don Bacon wants to get rid of Pete Hegseth over at the Defense Department. How strange. Now, why would a guy like Don Bacon want rid of Pete Hegseth? Huh. What a strange... Somebody emailed me yesterday and they said, Stigall, aren't you going to talk about Hegseth? Aren't you going to talk about the trouble he's in? I go, he's not in any trouble, folks. I said to this guy, I go, this is a non-story. It's absolutely bogus. This did come up yesterday. Pete Hegseth was at the White House Easter egg roll. Give me 613, if you would, Paulie.
You know, what a big surprise that a bunch of, a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies and on hoaxes time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because, you know, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, no, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with axes to grind.
Yep.
And then you put it all together.
Yep. And Dandy Don Bacon. Fitting that his last name is Bacon, because he loves him the pork. Former Brigadier General. Shame on you, Don Bacon. Shame on you.
There's probably never been a bigger focus on health right now. The Maha movement with the focus on eating healthy for a change. Very good news for my sponsors and friends at Balance of Nature. We have it in our cabinet. Take it every day. Their method of producing vibrant nutritional supplements is second to none. You know, a lot of others use chemicals and additives. Balance of Nature is made solely from whole food. Other methods, they sacrifice nutritional quantity for the sake of profits and volume, but Balance of Nature, they have a very advanced vacuum cold process, so they freeze dry the fruits and the vegetables, and they retain 93% of their nutritional value. A lot of the other nutrients that you might see out there are lucky to salvage 30%. Balance of Nature packs a nutritional punch is the point. That's the whole reason we take Balance of Nature, and I think you ought to as well. You'll get the most nutrition for the sake of your health. And right now, if you use my name, Chris, as your discount code, you'll get 35% off, plus free shipping and the money-back guarantee. Call 800-2468-751. 800-2468-751. Use my name, Chris, as your promo code. You can also log on to balanceofnature.com and use the name Chris as your promo code. You'll get 35% off plus free shipping. Make America healthy again, you bet. It starts with Balance of Nature. Promo code Chris, balanceofnature.com.
Here we are, 2025. Happy New Year. And our friends at Gulag America are back and along for the ride. You know, they have been not only great sponsors, but they have been ride or die founders at the Harump Society. I am so appreciative for our friends at Gulag America. I love the work they do. And we have every reason to be optimistic in this new year. They are, we are, all of us are. America's resurgence, it's back. Trump's back. And Gulag America wants to continue to be your premier source for topical and satirical apparel and other gear designed to help give you voice for your love of liberty and your desire to see America great again. I know we all share that in common. Gulag America does too, but that doesn't mean that the deep state's not going to be busy at work. They're not going to go gently into the good night, as they say. So Gulag America is ready. They want you battle ready. They want you geared up, and they've got hilarious stuff for you to buy, and they're going to give it to you at a deep discount to kick off the new year. You ready for this? You take 15% off all orders at gulagamerica.com when you use my promo code Chris15. So if you go shopping today and you see a shirt you like, and you will because they're hilarious, go to gulagamerica.com, type the promo code Chris15. That's Chris15. Type it in the checkout, and then you'll save big. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy new savings with that same quality, that same hilarious attitude that you've come to expect from our buddies at Gulag America, where they say,
It's not our wish. It is our warning.
Yeah, I know. Some of you out there think that I am souring or leaning into this pessimism, this nattering nabob stuff about Trump and the economy. I'm not. I am, as Trump said, be cool. I'm cool, but I understand if you're of a certain age and you're looking at your portfolio, I get why it's stressing you out. I'm not discounting or dismissing that, and that's just, the reality of it is, whether you like that or not, that's the problem. Hey, good morning, folks. Glad to have you along. I'm live in your nation's capital today. Double super secret assignment. Can't tell you about it today. I will tell you about it tomorrow, though. We'll be here again tomorrow for another broadcast day. I'll give you a hint. Trump's 100 days in office are coming up soon. In fact, Larry Elder and I will have a special on the Salem News Channel and the great Salem affiliates all over the country, the Salem Radio Network. We will have a simulcast, I think at 8 o'clock Eastern. I'll have more specificity as we get closer, but I think if you want to mark your calendar for it and tune in, we should have some great original content, Larry and I, and some great guests and conversation as we commemorate that 100 days. I don't know the actual day anymore either, Ed. Is it actually on Tuesday, a week from today, or not? I know we're getting close. We're not there yet. But anyway, Larry and I are going to be commemorating that first 100 days on the Salem News Channel and the Salem Radio Network, 8 p.m. Eastern, a week from tonight. Hope you'll join Larry and me. Looking very, very forward to catching up with the sage of South Central. And, of course, you. 855-STIGALL is the telephone number if you want to get in here today. 855-784-4255. The Dow headed for its worst April since 1932 as investors send a no-confidence signal. This is something that we're going to have to deal with in the short term, even for those of you that say this is negativity and this is pessimism. Yes, but it's also politics. And we've got to be realistic about politics. And I'll just say this, that it seemed for a time, the first 3 months or so of this administration, it was offense, offense, offense. Constant hard charging. Doge was making news. We were finding all kinds of stuff right and left. It seems like the press is starting to catch the car a little bit here. Now, does that tick you off, Ed? Does that make you feel, are you feeling glum? Does that sour you? I want to be careful here because I don't want to get a bunch of negative emails saying, Stigall, what's wrong with you? Why are you being a pessimist? I'm not. I'm a realist, and I'm telling you what I know. I travel enough. I talk to enough people. I hear from enough folks who are Trump enthusiasts. I know I've gotten pretty good at this, and I know when the emotional divining rod is starting to trend a little down. And Fast Eddie, there are some people right now that are starting to feel a little down in the mouth. They're looking at their portfolio, and some are feeling like maybe we're not quite on the offensive game we were a couple, 3 weeks ago. You get that
Chris,
sense?
I do, and you have to understand, I mean, you said earlier that the Democrats aren't really pouncing on the economy thing, but you better believe the media will.
Sure.
Just so you know.
So this judge thing is a real deal. Them playing to this idea that the Trump administration isn't going to listen to judges. I don't know if they keep up this we got to help the illegal alien gang members thing. If they keep that line up, the only thing that's really helping and buoying Trump and Republicans right now is the fact that Democrats seem to want to spring illegal alien prisoners from foreign prisons and bring them back here. That's bat crap bonkers to me. I can't believe that's where they're dying on a hill this week and last week, but that seems to be where they want to continue to go. And it is because, I will tell you why, there is data that suggests out there that the more the Democrats keep telling this story that Trump is going to ignore judges, and the more Republicans talk about impeaching judges, the more that happens, that ultimately that's going to end up hurting Republicans, that's going to hurt Trump. And I think if they can keep hammering on that idea all the way to next year, that will help them in the midterms. Trump will ignore judges. Well, I don't know. I think if we keep talking about impeaching judges, that could happen. But I think if we keep the discussion about protecting illegal aliens and bringing them home for their day in court, I actually don't think that's going to work. I do think it's problematic, though, when you talk about the economy and the Dow hitting its headed for its worst April since 1932. I also apologize for the noise in this place, guys. Here at the D.C. studios, apparently the spending has not stopped here. Infrastructure spending is well intact here at the D.C. studios, Fast Eddie. They've been doing construction here for the better part of 3 years, right underneath our feet. And I like, it's befuddling to me what the hell goes on in this building, but they have been literally, like it's Tim Robbins and Shawshank Redemption. 3 years, there's a guy right under our feet drilling for 3 solid years now. It's unbelievable.
We have to call Elon. We have to get Doge in there to figure out what the heck they're doing.
They could have. They could have dozed this entire dump and built a new one in the time the guy underneath us drilling could finish drilling. It is. Do you hear that? Is it just me? I mean, I don't mean to. Typically, I'd plow through it. It is deafening to me. I'll just tell you that. I typically would ignore it, but do you hear this? To the drilling? It's gone now.
Yeah, not as loud, but yes, in that studio, yeah, and the in-ear thing, yeah, it's loud. Yeah, come on.
I mean, it's loud. But anyway, sorry, I digress. Back to the Wall Street Journal story. Worries about trade restriction. I sound like, what was it, Lawrence O'Donnell? Wasn't it Lawrence O'Donnell? Who's hammering? Stop the damn hammering! It's a real thing, folks. At least I'm not freaking out. I also know it's none of our people. It's people below us, our neighbors. I don't know what they're building down there. If you told me the Defense Department's down there building some sort of new bomb, I would believe you. It's really impressive, the noise. Anyway, the Dow shed almost 1,000 points yesterday, headed for its worst April performance since 1932. This is a deal. And so guys like Dave email me today, checking my email. If you go to chrisstigall.com, my email is right there. And he said, Stigall, this 1,000-point drop is only 2% of 45,000, our recent level. So that really isn't a big important statistic. If you had a 1,000-point drop many years ago, I began investing in 1973. It would have wiped out the entire market. If you research how many 2% drops we've had, you would have a much better perspective of how little importance this is. Dave, I understand. In the global context, this is something Dave Ramsey talks about. Everybody who's in investment, every financial advisor you talk to, if you're into investing for the long term, looking at your portfolio every minute of every day, every week, every month, up, down, you'll drive yourself to drink. You'll need antacids to get through it. I understand that, but the reality is the reality is the reality. And the media loves the ticker. People love to watch their portfolios, and people get emotional about that. You can say it doesn't matter. You can say it's a drop in the bucket broadly, but to real people right now, it's a deal. It freaks them out. Now, Bessent, you know how much we think of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent here. I think he's an impressive guy. I thought it's sort of interesting this week that he's taken to social media to speak directly to Americans about their finances. Paulie, give me 1611 here. Here's Treasury Secretary Bessent on his social media.
Everyone should care about financial literacy, whether you are a student with a summer job or a part-time job during school, whether you're in college, whether you're starting your career, or whether you are at the end of your career. Making good financial choices creates economic security, and look, it's fun. You learn about the markets, you learn how to properly allocate resources, and there's a big payoff over the long term for something you can do early in your career.
Yeah, and he continued just a little more here in 12.
America has been very good to me and my family, and I want to spread the word that through financial literacy, you can accumulate both financial security, peace of mind, and move toward your financial goals.
Now, again, Scott Bessent said something a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I don't remember when he sat down and talked with Tucker Carlson, that really sort of blew my mind. You want some perspective? 88% of the stock market is owned by 10% of the country. 88% of the stock market is owned by 10% of the country. The next, what was that? The next 12%? The next 12% owned by 40% of the country. So that is the bulk of us who are investors. We own 12% of the market, the full total market. And then the 50% that's left of this country, debt. So Scott Besson is taking the opportunity here to go on his social media and start talking about financial literacy. Fast Eddie, when was the last time you remember a government official talking to the American people about their finances and financial literacy and why it's important to learn and understand this stuff? When was the last time you remember somebody talking about that?
Chris, I don't remember anybody talking about that, to be perfectly honest. I was thinking about this yesterday. Even since high school, I don't think I've heard anybody from government talking about this.
I think this is profoundly important. Besant loves this stuff. I mean, he's a bit of a nerd for it, he admits. But he also says, listen, I've been blessed. The riches of this country have blessed me and my family. I want that for you, but you've got to learn how to do it. Financial literacy is important. Get next to people that know what they're doing and get a coach and start learning how to take care of yourself and your money. 50% of this country is in debt. Another 40% of us only own 12% of the stock market. The top 10%, 88% of the stock market. That's an imbalance. Besant knows it. It's about more than the markets today. This is the Stigall Show. Thanks for listening on 1450 AM in Cincinnati. And on great radio stations all over the country. Those of you watching on the Salem News Channel, beautiful shot of Cincinnati this morning as Tuesday gets started there and all across the country. Thanks for being here on the Chris Stigall Show. I am the aforementioned Chris Stigall, and I'm here in your nation's capital today. We're on double super secret assignment. I can't tell you why, but I will tell you tomorrow once we get today behind us. Today we're playing a bit by ear, but I'll say this as a bit of a hint. It is the 100 days of Trump coming up soon, the first 100 days. And so I'll have more specific information for you tomorrow on the show. But we'll be here today and tomorrow in our D.C. studios, and glad to have you along at 855-STIGAL if you want to get in here. As for the Harumph Society, you want to join me there because I'm going to have, I'll say this, some behind the scenes. I always have some behind the scenes of things I see when I travel like this, and I like to put it up there for Harumphers exclusively. Didn't have one yesterday on Monday because Sunday was Easter. I typically sit down and put that together on Sunday, and I enjoyed the Easter holiday, the holy holiday, with my family. So I took Sunday off. So there was no Harumph Society on Monday, but there will be one tomorrow. So we got a lot to catch up on. You're going to meet some fantastic people in this audience who are fellow Harumphers too. Join us. Head to chrisstigall.com, click on the Harumph Society logo, and you're off to the races. We'd love to have you there. Donald Trump yesterday, responding to all of these various judges, including the Supreme Court, that want to continue to stop him from deporting illegal aliens. Trump said, I'm doing what I was elected to do, remove criminals from our country. But the courts don't seem to want me to do that. My team is fantastic, doing an incredible job. However, they're being stymied at every turn by even the United States Supreme Court, which I have such great respect for, but seemingly doesn't want me to end violent criminals and terrorists, send them back to Venezuela, or any country for that matter. People that came here illegally, he put in an exclamation point. The courts are intimidated by the radical left, who are playing the ref, he put in quotes. Great Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito correctly wants to dissolve the pause on deportations. He is right on this, says Trump. If we don't get these criminals out of our country, we are not going to have a country any longer. We cannot give everyone a trial because to do so would take, without exaggeration, 200 years. We would need hundreds of thousands of trials for the hundreds of thousands of illegals we are sending out of the country. Such a thing is not possible to do. What a ridiculous situation we are in. Make America great again. So, this is the counter to the economic news. And this is where I watch with fascination because the economic news right now, not the best. It's not terrible. It's not the end of the world, but it's not roaring. There's some discomfort. And oddly, what's aiding Trump and the administration right now is the fact that Democrats and radical judges seem to want to make the discussion all about illegal aliens. Eric Schmidt, one of our favorite senators from Missouri, 1619 here, Paulie. Eric Schmidt talking about the Democrats' lust to travel on your taxpayer dollars to go see gang members, illegal gang members in Venezuela, El Salvadorian and Venezuelan prisons.
I can't believe that these Democrats are lining up to go down to a foreign country to visit a guy who was here illegally, a criminal, an MS-13 member who beat his wife. I mean, you can't be any more plain than that. That's who this is. So I think all along, Martha, they were looking for some example of something President Trump would do that was so bad that they could rally behind. I can't believe that they're that stupid that this is the guy. This is the poster child now for their movement.
Yeah, and Stephen Miller goes on to explain the court's decision here, 1625. White House advisor Stephen Miller.
You have, in this case, illegal aliens from Venezuela sent here by Maduro who are members of a foreign terrorist organization, Tren de Aragua, an organization that the intelligence community has found is operating at the direction of a hostile, adversarial foreign regime carrying out criminal enterprises to destabilize the political system in the United States. Those are the facts when it comes to TDA. So they're all illegal, they're all gang members, they're all foreign terrorists. And now we are being told that they cannot be expelled from our country without an extraordinary amount of individualized adjudication at the district court, circuit court, Supreme Court, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah. So that, to his point, that it would take, and Trump said it, 200 years if we did it by the court's standard here. It's outrageous, and it's helping the Trump administration quite a bit, actually, distract from this economy. So maybe they should keep it up.
Speaking of special, Easter is special, and it's one of our favorite days. It's one of our favorite periods of time. We're honoring Jesus Christ, and we're going to honor Jesus Christ very powerfully throughout our lives, all throughout our lives, not just now, all throughout our lives. We're bringing religion back in America. We're bringing a lot of things back, but religion is coming back to America. That's why you see the kind of numbers that you're seeing, the spirit and the kind of numbers that you're seeing. So,
the White House Easter egg roll, the annual tradition on the Monday right after Easter, happens every year here in Washington, D.C. That's where I am today from our D.C. studios on the Salem News Channel. If you're watching, thanks a lot for watching. Get the app so you can take it along with you wherever you go. Just click the Watch Live button. It's so easy. You get the app, click Watch Live, you're off to the races. And for those of you listening on great Salem radio stations all over the country, thank you so much. You can always catch the podcast, too. If you miss any part of the show or you want to go back and listen, go to chrisstigall.com and you can subscribe to the podcast and catch it every day. So no excuse when we have a test. You should be able to take the class along with you wherever you go. So yesterday being the White House Easter egg roll, you heard Trump there referencing, invoking Christ, Jesus Christ. Now, that's not something you hear very often from the White House. You just don't. Even though most presidents, I believe every president, well, maybe I should bring in Ed Morrissey to confirm this. Ed's smarter than me. He's my great friend and the big dog at Hot Air. And Ed, first of all, good morning and a happy Easter season to you, my friend. All right, now I don't hear Ed. I don't know if he can hear me, so we'll see if we can rectify that. But while we're trying to get that connection established, give me just a little bit more. 1615 of Trump at the Easter egg roll yesterday, Paulie. Number 1615. Then we'll see if we can get Ed connected here.
You talked about Jesus in your opening statement.
Yeah.
How important is this country right now?
Very important. It brings the country together. I mean, it's so important that we can do that. Religion, I said, bring religion back. Religion keeps you together. It's such a great thing.
Okay, we'll try it again. Ed Morrissey, welcome back.
Hi, I thought we were in the Marcel Marceau show.
There you go.
I was about ready to start doing, my infamous wall. That's right.
Yeah,
sorry
that's all right. I've got a very loud drill underneath me that I can hear loud and clear. You guess so much, not so much. But anyway, we got it all figured out. Ed, how significant is it, just kind of scale of 1 to 10, when you have a president of the United States invoking specifically the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? That doesn't happen often from the presidency.
It doesn't happen often enough, I will say that. I'm a little surprised. Usually presidents tend to be a little bit more ecumenical. They do things like Trans Day of Visibility on Easter, things like that. That stretches ecumenical to the objectively insane level. But that's normally presidents like to play it safe.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, politics is always addition. It's never subtraction. So, and it's should never be division, really. But so normally you just try to make everybody happy with every statement that you make. And so you end up saying nothing. I actually very much appreciated Donald Trump's official Easter statement, his, off the cuff remarks. He seems to be very, genuine about this. And I think that comes across. And I think that's excellent. And I don't think it detracts from anybody else. I mean, this is an Easter holiday, right? So you're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's what Easter is about. And if you're talking about Easter, that's assumed, but I think it needs to be more than assumed. I was glad to hear what Donald Trump had to say yesterday.
It's always a little weird, though, no matter what they're saying, when there's a guy in a bunny suit standing next to him. That's always a little weird.
I will tell you this. It's less weird than when the person in the Easter bunny suit is blocking the president from the rope line, waving his hands and telling the president, you're not supposed to be here, go over there.
In fact, Trump brought that up yesterday. Give me 1617, Paulie. Here's Trump talking about that very thing, Biden having to be guided off by the bunny a couple of years ago.
Do you remember the bunny with Joe Biden? Remember? Do you remember when the bunny took Joe Biden out? He's not taking Trump out. Anyway, that was a beautiful moment when the bunny saved Joe Biden.
I love the guy in the bunny suit playing along. Oh no, shaking his head. So good. Anyway. Yeah, Biden, by the way, while we're on it, because I don't know where else I'd put this, do you know now the New York Post is claiming the family picture released by the Bidens at Easter? The claim is that Biden was photoshopped into it. Have you seen that yet?
I saw David Strom wrote about it for us last night, and I haven't had a chance to dig into it. I would not be surprised. And let me just say this: there is, and I've known this for years because I have friends who worked in family portrait photography. Is that they've had the technology to take individual pictures of people and then blend them into a family portrait. It looks great. It's really actually technology. It's not even Photoshopped. It's what the technology is meant to do. And maybe that's what's going on. I haven't really dug into it, but it is hilarious.
So he posted at 4:00 on Easter. We wish everyone celebrating today a peaceful and joyful Easter. See, even that kind of equivocation, to your point, Ed, it's like even Joe Biden posting, or whoever wrote, we wish everyone celebrating today a peaceful and joyful Easter. Like, who else would you be, like, why equivocate with that? Just say, Happy Easter, for heaven's sakes. But anyway, the internet abuzz Sunday as sleuths tried to figure out whether Joe Biden photoshopped himself into the family Easter picture. It's a picture featuring his family sitting on some steps in Delaware. The former president apparently seated on the top step wearing a blue suit. That's the other thing. They're all kind of relatively casually dressed, Ed. And there's Biden in a suit at the very top of the group on the steps. Kind of like there's a little gap in there. Maybe they photoshopped him in.
At his age, let's just be thankful he wasn't photographed in his birthday suit. Okay, so.
All right, Ed. On to some more serious matters, and that is...
I was about to have fun with that one. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, please, go for it. Finish up. I don't want to steal it.
I mean, this is a guy who was photoshopped into the presidency for 4 years. What do you expect?
Right now. There you go. Now, he's done 2 shows. 2-drink minimum. Ed, the Pope's passing was a remarkably timed thing unto itself. I mean, if you, I don't know if you sense anything spiritually in his passing. We spoke with a couple of priests yesterday about it, one of whom said that they thought it was really very poignant. He gives an Easter blessing and then maybe just hours later dies. There's a poignancy to that, yes?
Oh, absolutely. And, I spent, I was on a different radio network yesterday talking about this, and I think he really wanted to have one last Easter, and I think that the Lord's grace allowed him to do that, right? And I definitely take a spiritual element from the timing of his passing. And look, I mean, this is a man who deeply believed in the Easter message and in Easter people, the resurrection, and spent his life in service to it. And we can quibble about the different things that he did, but this is a man who spent his life in service to Jesus Christ and the hope of the resurrection. And it's his whole message. His whole message on Easter was exactly about that. on Thursday, I don't know if people really know this outside of sort of the Catholic realm, he went to the Regina Coeli prison to meet with prisoners, and his doctors told him not to do it. But he wanted to go through that last Easter process, I think. And, in sports we say somebody left it all on the field, right? They gave it their all. And I think Pope Francis left it on the field this past week. I think he just really wanted to empty himself out in that last Easter. And this is inspirational to me. It's an inspiration about dedication and giving.
Ed Morrissey is managing editor at Hot Air, and because you talk about politics, and because I know you are a faithful Catholic as well, you come at this with an interesting look, and I wanted your perspective because we talked with Frank Pavone, who, as you know, famously defrocked by Pope Francis, largely, I think people believe, because of his sort of aggressive politics. We talked with a priest in the Philadelphia Archdiocese yesterday when I talked about the cardinals who would select the new pope, and I asked him how much politics would come into play in selecting another pope. That priest demurred. He said, I can't possibly know that. I don't really want to go there. So the opinions run the gambit as to how politicized the selection of the next pope will be. How do you read it?
Well, I don't think it's politicized in the sense that we think about it in American politics. And first off, Frank Pavone has a legit gripe. I am sure that he's got lots of emotions at this that probably don't necessarily correspond with most other Catholics. He's got a legit gripe, and I like Father Pavone, or Frank Pavone, and wish him well. But when I think you're talking about politics in a conclave, I think that they're going to be looking at some of the discord that erupted over the last 12 years, right? Especially maybe over the Latin Mass, the application and emphasis of certain things over doctoral discipline. I think that one of the things that might be part of that conclave is the idea that we need to maybe find a way to resolve those issues so that there can be greater unity. And that means, it would really mean doctrinal conservatism, probably, at least to a greater degree than over the last 12 years, or at least maybe a better way of putting it is doctrinal, and I said doctoral, I meant doctrinal discipline, right? A pope that is less off the cuff, a little bit more leaning into prepared remarks on issues of doctrine so that there isn't confusion, so it doesn't create rifts. And I think that part of this is going to be, I think there's going to be some discussion over the Latin Mass, because I think that was a fight that didn't need to be picked. I think it created a lot of unnecessary division. There's a way to, Pope Benedict XVI and John Paul II, they had the Latin Mass, they allowed the Latin Mass. And I think just that issue alone would probably go a long way to making people feel better about where the next papacy is going to go. But it's difficult to say because it's a set of people that have no real interest in politics. They have their positions for life. And they're going to be in that room making the decision. Nobody else is. You and I have talked about the tradition, the Catholic traditions, the Orthodox Catholicism making a return, particularly with young people. And I have heard some say they hope that in kind, cardinals will choose a pope from the continent of Africa, because that's where the most Orthodox guys are found. True or false, with about a minute to go? No, absolutely. The energy is coming from Africa and to a certain extent Asia too, because that's where the church is being martyred. I mean, actively martyred. They've got massacres happening in Nigeria that are aimed at Catholics in that country. India is trying to suppress Catholics and other Christians. The current administration in India. So I think the church thrives where it's under the most pressure, because that's where all of the matters of life, death, and the afterlife come into sharpest relief. So yes, the energies in Africa, I don't know if that means you're going to have an African pope, but I do know that the African bishops and cardinals, I should say, the African cardinals in that conclave are going to have something to say about the direction of this church. Ed Morrissey, a good man, brilliant writer, hotair.com. Thank you, my friend, so much for your time. And just a heads up, this will come up, and you're going to hear more about this, just so you know. The Education Department is going to start collecting student loans again, Fast Eddie. The news yesterday that the Department of Ed is going to restart collecting federal student loans in default beginning May 5th
ending the COVID-era pause that began 5 years ago. People that have been in default on their student loans have not had to worry about it for 5 years. McMahon in the Ed Department said yesterday American taxpayers will no longer be forced to serve as collateral for irresponsible student loan policies. The Biden administration misled borrowers. The executive branch does not have the constitutional authority to wipe away debt, nor do the loan balances simply disappear. Now, be forewarned. While, again, I know most in this audience say, well, of course, Stigall, they borrowed the money, they should pay it back. Ed, I think we all know better. The way the media is going to treat this is, look at the cost of things, inflation is still out there, now the market's taking a dip, and now you're going to make these poor people pay back their loans when they can least afford to do so. That will be the next storyline come May 5th and beyond. Make book on it.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'll write it down in the prediction folder, Chris. It's like they forced him back to actually go to work, and now it's like, well, yeah, now you're forced to pay your debts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how this all works.
We were just talking to Ed Morrissey. Speaking of predictions, I also made this one as a joke yesterday, Ed. I made a joke yesterday on this show that they were going to blame J.D. Vance for the Pope's death. Do you know that Jessica Tarlov, the babe who's on the left on the 5 over there at Fox, she actually retweeted a post that maybe J.D. Vance didn't kill the Pope, but the Pope lost his will to live after meeting with him that day?
Of course she did.
Wow.
Yep.
How about that? So, and again, that was, by the way, mild. I was kind of being flip, but I shouldn't ever underestimate, as George W. Bush said, the left. There were literally people on social media yesterday saying J.D. Vance and his visit hours prior to Pope Francis's death, that J.D. Vance murdered him or had something to do with the death of the Pope. You can literally find that online if you go look for it. I guess I shouldn't say it's astounding because nothing surprises me anymore. You know what else shouldn't surprise me anymore? The fact that white liberals like to scold blacks about their lot in life, their station in life. Byron Donalds, the congressman from Florida, his lovely wife we have on the show from time to time, Erica Donalds, they've been vicious to the Donalds family. It's an interracial marriage, and the only reason I bring that up is because Jasmine Crockett said some of our skin folk ain't our kin folk once, if you remember that lovely, delightful turn of phrase she shared on The Breakfast Club, the show for all black America, hosted by Charlemagne T.H.A. God. Skin folk ain't our kin folk, she said of Byron Donalds, because, of course, he's married to a white woman. One of the favorite things white leftists like to do in this country is scold black conservatives to their faces. Byron Donalds had a town hall down in Florida. You know, he's announced he wants to run for governor of Florida. No word yet on whether the First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis, is going to get in the ring. I don't think that's official yet. A lot of people think she will. And then that would be a contentious showdown between Byron Donalds and Casey DeSantis in a primary. But anyway, Donalds has already said he wants in. He's having I think this is a congressional town hall. I don't think this has anything to do with his gubernatorial run down there in Florida. This is a town hall, I believe. This is how some of it goes. Now, this went on for a while, but just take a listen to some of this. Byron Donalds, 1629, I believe, Paulie. You have it in there, at his town hall. Listen.
Have you read the book Cask by Isabel Wilkerson?
Have you read the book of my life?
Cask.
Hold on, stop. Don't educate me about my life, sir. Don't do that. Don't, sir. Hold on. What? Please, hear me on this. I like how everybody's shouting at me, the black guy on stage with the microphone and saying, have you read this book, read this book, read this book, read this book? Don't marginalize my life and what I've done. Don't do that. Don't marginalize other black people. Don't do that. Don't marginalize theirs. Do you know how many black men in America?
I have to tell you, and I know that was inaudible for most of us. There's better audio out there, but anyway, you get the flavor of it. It is an almost exclusively white audience, all right? Both supporters and voters of Donalds as well as left-wing agitators who are packing these congressional town halls to make it look organic, like there's this great consternation out there with Republicans in Congress. Of course, there's not. We know there's a Gallup poll out right now that says congressional Democrats have never been at a lower point ever in metric history than they are right now. 25% approval rating for Democrats in Congress right now. That's including amongst their own. They are desperate to make a story. And so these agitators, these paid carpet bomb, lunatic, gaslighting, left-wing whites are going into these congressional town halls and they're shouting down a black Republican, telling him, why don't you read this and why don't you read that? And of course he appropriately says, excuse me, you, Whitey, are going to tell me, a black guy, what I should be reading? I beg your pardon? So they're screaming at him about how he needs to embrace DEI, and they're screaming at him about what books to read, and they're screaming at him about his support for Israel, and they're chanting Free Palestine and all this business. These people are out of their ever-loving minds, and as far as I'm concerned, let it go. Let it keep happening. I mean, I hate that it happens to Byron Donalds. It's really gross. It's really gross to watch these former Klansmen, who are kind of the modern-day version of the Klan. All they're missing is the torches and the hoods, screaming at a black man that he needs to get his mind right. It's actually horrifying. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation, and they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got two dentists who are really, really want to learn and really, really willing to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office that will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. I want to welcome aboard the show our new sponsors at Texas Bullion Exchange. Great guys. If you go to buytexasgold.com, you will see my smiling mug right there at the top of the page. Since leaving the gold standard in 1971, the dollar has lost over 90% of its purchase power. Now, if you think about that, what used to cost $1 now takes $10 or more. That's pretty stunning. And if you think about gold, on the other hand, it's held strong. It's increased over 7,000%, as a matter of fact, in that very same window of time. So if you're holding a bunch of savings in cash, that's losing buying power by the day. Texas Bullion Exchange wants to help you diversify a portion of that wealth right now, roll over maybe an existing part of your IRA or the entire thing into physical gold and silver. And right now, for every $1,000 you diversify in gold with Texas Bullion Exchange, you'll get a free ounce of silver. Claim that free silver and learn more. That website again is buytexasgold.com. Be sure and mention my name, Chris, when you reach out to them, buytexasgold.com. Here's their number, okay? 855-839-2728. At Texas Bullion Exchange, the focus is on helping you preserve what you've worked so hard to build. Protect that wealth. Keep it safe from inflation. Tangible assets like gold and silver, not paper promises. That's what they can do for you. BuyTexasGold.com or call 855-839-2728. Be sure you mention Chris when you give them a ring. Glad to be with you today, folks. Welcome in to the Tuesday edition of the Chris Stigall Show. 8 o'clock live in the East, a little after 8. We are in your nation's capital today. Double super secret assignment. I'll tell you more about it tomorrow. I'll be here in D.C. again tomorrow as well. Always a thrill to be with you. Never matters really where I am. You can always reach me the same way, 855-STIGALL. If you want to get in here, you can follow along, join the Harump Society, chrisstigall.com. All the social media is linked up there too, as well as the podcast. So whether you're listening on great Salem radio stations all over the country, whether you're watching us on the Salem News Channel, get that Salem News Channel app. I commend it to you because it's a great way to take this show along live. You can watch it there on your phone or wherever you prefer to watch it. Samsung Plus or whatever, but that Salem News Channel app's super easy. You open the app, click Watch Live, and there I am. That's the easiest thing going right now. So, but anyway, if you're not listening on the radio, thanks for choosing the Salem News Channel or the podcast also. Look, bottom line, Donald Trump is meeting today with Target. He's meeting with Home Depot. He's meeting with Walmart because, much like everybody else, These companies, like you as an individual investor, you watch your investments, everybody needs to feel some level of certainty. That is why it is so imperative Republicans pass that big, beautiful bill. And I may be the only show in the country, along with the only economist in the country, that continues to harp on this fact. If you do not pass the big, beautiful bill, all of this discussion about economics is for naught, and we are in real trouble. Then this tariff situation becomes much more burdensome. Trump has a vision. He has a strategy. It requires the big, beautiful bill being passed, and nobody is talking about Congress's responsibility in this. Steve Moore is, though. Every week we talk with him. He's from the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. He has authored the Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again, and you can get his hotline newsletter for free every single day in your email box if you sign up for it. Steve-O, the big, beautiful bill. It's everything, my man.
Yeah, Chris, you just took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I wanted to talk to you about this morning. It's been 100 days now, or very close. When is the 100-day? I think it's very close, right? Sometime in the next few days. And Republicans have already have passed this bill. What is taking them so long? This is not complicated. Trump ran on this. He has a voter mandate to get it done. And you're so right to remind people that failure is not an option here, that if we don't get this done, on January 1st, you're looking at the biggest tax increase in the history of mankind, with a $4 trillion tax increase costing the average family $3,000 and zapping every small business in America with a big tax increase as well. It has to get done. I'm frustrated with the Republicans in Congress that they aren't moving with some speed here and some urgency. Trump said the other day that he wants this on his desk by Memorial Day, which is about 5 weeks away or so. I think he's exactly right about that. There's not a whole lot to debate. The Democrats will not vote for this bill, so you got to get every Republican on board. Just as Nike would say, just do it. And sooner it gets done, the better it is for the economy. You're exactly right. And the stock market will start to roar once this is done.
I will tell you, just between us girls here, we were invited to Capitol Hill a couple of weeks ago. The House was going to do some media availability with shows like ours.
Right.
They wanted to sit down and talk about the 100-day accomplishments and things like that, and then suddenly it was scuttled. And they canceled it, and they said, we're very, very busy, no time for media right now. And I thought, okay, well, I hope that's serious, that they're very, very busy and behind closed doors doing hard work, and not we're terrified of being questioned about the big, beautiful bill, which I'm fearful might be the latter rather than the former,
Yeah. By the way, Chris, even Democrats support that bill. Support getting that tax bill done.
Yep.
It's very popular with the public. It is not I'm so damn tired of hearing, these Democratic politics. Oh, it's a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. I'm not a millionaire. Are you a billionaire, Chris? I know you're good. I would do well with that bill. I think most people listening to this show would see a nice tax cut if that happened. And people are financially stressed out right now. So get it done. And the other thing I just wanted to add to this is stop talking about raising tax rates. That's not what Republicans are for. They're to create a positive economic environment. Raising taxes would just really hurt the economy. So don't fall into that Democratic trap.
You agree or disagree with me when you hear anybody in Congress say, well, if we cut taxes or if we get rid of taxes on Social Security, overtime, and tips, we've got to figure out how to pay for it. Nothing makes me angrier than when I hear a politician say we got to figure out how to pay for giving you your money back. That's an outrageous turn of phrase.
Yeah, well put, Chris. I don't know if I could say it better than you just did. And you're right. I mean, we need the way you pay for these tax cuts. You grow the economy. We didn't lose revenue from the Trump tax cut in 2017. The revenues rose every year. I say it almost every week on your show, Chris, but I have to say it again. Washington does not have a revenue problem. We have record high revenue in the government right now. We have an overspending problem.
Yes.
As Elon Musk has pointed out, we could save $1 trillion with the snap of a finger. Most people listening to the show wouldn't even notice it was missing because it's all fraud. overpayments, just incredible incompetence, redundancy of programs. Everyone knows we could cut $1 trillion out of the budget in a way that would make our government much more efficient. Let's do that, and let's not raise people's taxes.
I've asked you before, and I'll ask you again. What is the reluctance, particularly from Senate Republicans, to cut spending when they act like $4 billion maybe is the best they can do, and the House says no, we want $1.5 trillion or more, and the Senate just gets the vapors about it? What is the reticence? What is the hesitation? Why do Senate Republicans act like they can't achieve $1 trillion? You just said snap the fingers. Why don't they get that?
Because Republicans like to play Santa Claus, just like Democrats do. They don't like to take away, all of the waste, and they like to pass out special favors. I mean, I hate to break it to you, Chris, but a lot of Republicans like to spend money too. Yeah. We need to get the fiscal hawks to force those cuts in place. But look, it's been a rough period for the stock market, no question. I've lost money. I think everybody has been looking at their 401k plan, getting
Here's
nervous.
the headline, Steve-O, from the Wall Street Journal. Dow headed for worst April since 1932. Somebody said on X yesterday that of the single-day 1,000-point losses, there have been 11, and 4 of them came since, quote, Liberation Day, kind of snarkily suggesting that look at how Trump is single-handedly destroying the market or something. Are you panicked that we've seen another 1,000-point fall and that we're headed toward, as the Wall Street Journal says, worst day since 1932, worst April?
By the way, the Dow, even when I got started in this business in 1984, the entire Dow Jones was only 1,000, so you couldn't lose 1,000 points. Yeah. We're at 40,000 on the Dow right now. So look, do I like to see a 1,000-point decline? No, I hate it. But I'm saying in percentage terms, that's much lower than previous times. Trump has told us that his trade tariff talks and is short-term pain for long-term gain. And I think he's right. We're going to get better deals. We're going to see these countries reduce their tariffs on us. And as soon as that starts happening in combination with the tax cut, I'm not a financial analyst, but I like, if you bought the blue chip stocks at today's prices, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you're going to be really happy because, we're going to rebuild this American economy, and these stocks are going to look really cheap 2 years from now. Give the guy a little bit of time. He's only been in office 95 days.
Yeah. Look, Navarro, for what it's worth, and I know some people don't necessarily like Navarro's economic policies, but Navarro says 50,000 by the time Trump's out of office.
I'm with him on that. Yeah. And I'm not a big Navarro fan either, but he's exactly right. We will be, you can quote me on this, okay?
Okay.
In 2028, the Dow will be well above 50,000.
Ooh, all right. Yep. Mark it down fast, Eddie. Steve Moore says, very quickly, J.D. Vance gave an important speech this morning. Not a lot of people probably going to talk about it as being important. He was speaking in India. And, of course, neighbors to China. And China says yesterday they vow to punish any country that agrees to Trump trade deals. Vance was over there leaning on India hard. I mean, really cozying up to them, saying, hey, we can do big things with energy and AI.
Right.
Join us. That's important, isn't it?
Look, this is a gut check moment, not just for India, but for Europe, for Canada, for Japan, for Korea. All of these countries have to make a decision, Chris. And this is, as I said, this is a really important moment for these countries. Are you with the United States or are you with China? Because Trump's whole strategy is to isolate China. They are the bad actors. They're the ones who cheat, steal. They're trying to take over the world. But we're going to find out in the course of the next couple of months, Chris, who are our real friends and allies and who aren't. And if they choose poorly, if they go with China, I say we're going to, don't count on us to defend you. And so how much have we spent on NATO? $1 trillion? And these Europeans say, well, maybe we're going to trade with China. No way. And I think in the end of the day, we are going to isolate China because they're the real danger to the world economy.
Yeah, and they clearly are threatened. If you're running around threatening other countries from doing business with us,
well, by the way,
know they're scared to death.
China has taken over land already from India.
That's right.
So they're making a pact with the devil if they go with China.
Steve Moore, it is always a pleasure to join you from the road. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you.
I'm sorry, I'm not in there. I'm in Minnesota today, and you're in D.C. I'm usually in D.C. You're in Philly. Sorry.
Well, we'll
sorry,
have
I
you.
missed you.
We'll get in studio together one of these days. Good to see you, Steve-O. Back in a flash on the Chris Stigall Show, live from your nation's capital today. Coming up, the importance of our churches and our church leadership culturally. It is more important than ever before. We're going to get into that coming up with Dr. John West. We're live here in your nation's capital today. Thanks so much for watching on the Salem News Channel. If you have the app, get it, download it, so you never miss any minute of this show. You can click on the Watch Live button. It's really easy. Take it along with you wherever you go. You can also listen, of course, on great radio stations all over the country. You may be listening to one right now, part of the Salem Radio Network. Thank you so much for choosing this radio station, if that's where you are. And, as always, the podcast of this show is available. If you go to chrisstigall.com, you can find it there, as well as all my social media, and the 3 times a week Harumph Society, which is coming out a new edition tomorrow. A couple of bits of news, good news. Under Trump, border catch and release has dropped 99% from the worst Biden month. This from the Washington Times. The change at the border between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, nothing short of staggering. 2 numbers best tell that story. 189,604 to 20. The first, the number of illegal aliens, Border Patrol agents caught and released in the United States in December 2023. The second, the number of illegal immigrants caught and released into the United States in February of this month. Roughly 0.01% of the total in Biden's worst month. That is staggering. Catch and release, December 2023, 190,000. February of this year, 20. Unbelievable. Harvard University. Here's another unbelievable. I said this yesterday on X. Harvard University is suing the Trump administration for withholding federal funds, your tax dollars and mine. Harvard is suing the president for withholding funds because they won't ditch DEI. The suit filed yesterday, part of a feud that escalated last week when the elite institution rejected a list of demands that the Trump administration said was designed to curb diversity initiatives and fight anti-Semitism at the school. Naturally, Harvard wanted nothing to do with fighting anti-Semitism, and they like preferential treatment by race and gender and sexuality, so they weren't going to ditch it. Trump says, fine, we're going to unplug the funds. We're not going to send you any more taxpayer dollars. Harvard is suing the people's president to force the people's president to hand over their tax dollars to them, to an institution that most of us will never step foot in or on the campus of. We will never see Harvard. None of our kids, most of them, will ever go to Harvard. Yet our tax money, to the tune of billions, will go there to promote a bunch of left-wing woke crap. Trump is trying to claw that back. Harvard is suing here again, much like trying to go down to the MS-13 Tren de Aragua prison in El Salvador and spring those guys and bring them home. I say keep it up. This is, again, the hill that the American left wants to die on. Keep it up. I mean, you're going to get Republicans elected in perpetuity. And that, keep in mind, is against the backdrop of an economy right now that's really wobbly because we're doing some tough things economically. And it's going to take some time. Here again, I hate to give Democrats advice, but were it me, I'd focus on the economy, but they know damn good and well they have no leg to stand on there, so they'd rather make it about this illegal stuff. I mean, okay, Harvard is going to sue to keep your money and my money flowing while they do all their woke garbage with it. All right. This is a rich one from the Washington Times. Democrats are urging judges to ask for more security aid regarding rise in threats. Oh, huh. 2 Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee are urging John Roberts to call upon Congress to help combat violence and threats against federal judges. Bless their hearts. So Democrat judges are feeling threatened now, are they? I don't believe it, first of all. I just don't believe it. Prove it. Prove to me there's one single Democrat judge under threat right now. Prove it. I mean, look, threats against anyone serving in public office in any capacity, whether it's a judge or whether it's a member of Congress or a mayor or a town council person or a school board member, physically threatening, intimidating people who serve in office is always wrong and should be resoundingly denounced and criticized. But I don't believe it. I don't believe that any of these Democrat wacko left-wing activist judges that are getting involved in Trump's immigration policy as activists, I don't believe a single one of them has been threatened, actually. I'd love to see the proof. And isn't it rich that they're asking for protection? Meanwhile, a Democrat judge has blocked Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, from cooperating with the Trump administration. Isn't this cute? The Democrat judges want it both ways. They want to stop anybody from working with the government to do something about illegals. They want to stop the federal government from deporting illegals. And then they say, oh, but we need protection from the mean Americans. Pretty rich. Oh, the Supreme Court today, by the way, is going to decide whether parents can tell their kids they don't have to participate in a bunch of LGBTQ crap at school. The Supreme Court's going to take that up today, as if that should even be an issue. I mentioned to you last week that I had the privilege of attending Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA Faith Division at what he calls his annual Pastor Summit. From what I'm told, they've only done that for the last couple of years, but it was really well attended compared to, I think, their first couple that they'd launched. I was thrilled to be a part of it. And the whole point of the Pastor Summit was to call different pastors from around the country together to talk about different issues, breakout sessions. I led a panel and a discussion about media and Christians influencing media. It was a real blessing. And the interesting discussion was how the church, and Charlie's position has always been pretty consistent on this, but I don't think it's uncommon to those of us who are believers. The church has not really been standing in the breach as we've seen culture erode and the country kind of erode, and the church needs to step up and do more. And I think that's really happening. I think there is a wave that is surging through the country that's changing the dynamic. But, we follow that here because it's important to us. And Dr. John West has written a new book on the subject. Stockholm Syndrome Christianity, Why Americans' Christian Leaders Are Failing, and what we can do about it. We've talked with Dr. West before about this book, but I welcome you back, Doctor, because I also saw you wrote a piece about Christian universities. I want to get into that into a minute, but first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Chris, for having me.
Of course. As I was saying, it seems there is an interest by pastors, those who head churches around the country. They're starting to wake up and realize no longer can you take the position of, let's not talk about politics.
Yeah, I do think there is a growing awareness because they've seen just how terrible things have become when Christians sort of stay out of the public sphere. Both, I think, politics, entertainment, academia, science, you name it. If Christians aren't salt and light there, this current culture is what we get, and worse. Yes. And so where do you see the church having taken too long to step up? I mean, if you were to point to an element of our culture where maybe it wouldn't have gotten out of control if but for, where do you see it? Well, I think the underlying problem is that many Christians were so intent on just getting an initial personal conversion and not intent on discipleship or giving people a Christian worldview or teaching them the necessity of courage of their convictions, that this is what you get. And so, one example that many people probably know the name of Francis Collins, who was celebrated in Time magazine, celebrated by many Christian leaders at Christianity Today and elsewhere as this national treasure because he had a personal conversion story from atheism to Christianity. But then he became the most powerful scientist in America for over a decade when he headed the National Institutes for Health. But the sad thing is, if you actually look at Francis Collins' public record, and it really is a tragedy, he governed in that position pretty much indistinguishable from a garden variety secularist leftist. So, for example, he oversaw millions of tax dollars going to the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania to build a national tissue hub based on aborted baby parts. I mean, and we're talking about aborted babies up to 42 weeks in gestation. So pretty much that's infanticide. But this wasn't done by a secularist. This funding was overseen by the nation's most self-identified, devout evangelical Christian. Or one other example of Collins, actually maybe two other examples. One is in the gender confusion madness, he spent millions of more dollars on radical doctors and hospitals that were basically cutting off the breasts of young women and filling kids with puberty blockers. And again, this was done by the nation's most devout evangelical Christian scientists. And then finally, during COVID, I know Christians had differences of opinion during COVID, but I think we all should recognize that at least that people who say, for example, had conscience objections to the vaccine and didn't take it shouldn't have been demonized and should have been
closing churches, Doctor. How about closing churches?
Or closing churches for more than a year. I mean, let me put it like in places. And so Collins helped facilitate that. But then there were others, like in Nevada, you had again, devout Catholic governor who touted how devout he was in attending Mass each week. He opened up casinos at the same time he put onerous restrictions on churches. And yet, there were many Christians who didn't stand up. In fact, our similarly very devout Supreme Court head, John Roberts, devout conservative Catholic, supposedly, he rubber stamped that. He was the key vote in allowing them to open up the casinos, but to shut down churches. So I think, again, the cost is high for just not having people with a consistent worldview.
Dr. John West has authored a book called Stockholm Syndrome Christianity, Why America's Christian Leaders Are Failing, What We Can Do About It. You also wrote a piece at cleartruthmedia.com headlined How Christian Universities Fail, and it piqued my interest given the conversation in the last days about the Department of Education and returning education back to the states. I find it funny when they say we're going to close down the Department of Education, and the left's immediate response is, what about student loans? What about college? Kids can't read and write, and the secular culture that we're in today, I would add to your list that you just ticked off, which was a great one. Churches have dropped the ball on educating kids, and they're starting to step up and create alternatives for parents, Christian schools and homeschool pods and other alternatives. I think the church really left public school out there to do its thing and tried to not really deal with it in church, and that was a terrible mistake. And that brings us to today, the mess we're in. And by the way, Christian universities are going the same way.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You know, the church and the family were the bulwarks of education for civilization for centuries upon centuries. And somehow in the last century, we basically handed it over to the arms of the state. And I think we've seen what's happened in that. And one good thing out of COVID was that many people realized they don't need to actually rely on, or shouldn't, on their public schools. And so whether it be private education or homeschool education, we homeschooled our kids in their later years. And you're right, there's really innovative situations now where, you know, it can be a real challenge to create a full-fledged school, but there are these homeschool co-ops or quasi-schools that meet maybe 3 times a week with teachers, but the parents are the directors of record. So it allows churches, I mean, if you're a minister out there listening and you think you can't actually form a Christian school, you can. You could form a homeschool Christian school, really a hybrid that doesn't require a lot of state regulation, and you could do great things. And so you're exactly right. It's exciting to see how many Christian churches are now, and parents stepping up to the plate. But you are right. That leaves the situation of Christian colleges and universities. And, you know, most people don't realize that Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Dartmouth, all these Ivy League institutions were founded originally as devoutly evangelical Christian institutions, in many cases for the specific mission of spreading the Christian faith. But then, by the mid-19th century, they had pretty much fallen away from that. And so then evangelical Christians in America actually started a whole new group of colleges and universities in the latter half of the 19th century. And they did good work for many decades, but what we've seen in the past couple of decades is, unfortunately, many of those are now going woke. Some are going broke because they're going woke, and it's really sad. And what's really sad, I was a professor at a historically evangelical Christian university for 12 years. I had tenure, I chaired a department, and I saw from the inside out of how these institutions decline. And so that's what my article is about. It's actually adapted from my book, but my book goes into a lot more detail. But because I think a lot of people are scratching their heads. For example, at the university I was at, Seattle Pacific University, was in the news just 2 or 3 years ago, not for a good reason, because 70% of the faculty at this evangelical Christian university voted against biblical marriage. They want a simple statement about marriage being between a man and a woman, and that's where sexuality should take place. That the university made the statement. They wanted it repealed, and when it didn't, they voted 70%. Well, how do you have an evangelical Christian university when you have 70% of the faculty who reject biblical marriage? Well, the simple answer to that is you don't. You don't have a Christian institution. But how did this happen? And a lot of people were scratching their heads. Well, I'll tell you how it happens. It happens because the board of trustees of these institutions, and I include K through 12 schools, I'd include boards of churches, they don't have the courage of their convictions. So what we had at my school, where some of the formative decisions were made, you had a board of trustees, and here's the thing, they were personally theologically conservative, often from the business community, sometimes from the sponsoring church, and so they were not theological liberals. But I actually blame them more for what happened than the theological liberals, because the theological liberals on campus were doing what they thought was right. They were Stockholm Syndrome Christians. They bought into it. They were wrong, but they were at least had the courage of their convictions. The board members would have said, well, we don't agree with that, but they ended up rubber stamping it.
They were frightened. They were afraid. They can't, you can't be afraid. That's the thing. These left-wing Christians, if that's what you wish to call them, they're not afraid. They will import their ideology one way or the other. They will get their way. And that's why those of us who are, believers in the Word of God, we've got to be as bold as they are, at least, and have that fight in the public square. Listen, Dr. West, I could talk to you about this all day. Unfortunately, I don't have all day. But your piece, I want people to read it, particularly for people that have kids in Christian school and think, well, now I'm going to send them off to a Christian university. Just like Christian schools today, K through 12, Christian university or Christian school, just because it says it, right, Doctor? Buyer beware.
Yes. And in fact, if people go to my book's website, StockholmSyndromeChristianity.com, under resources, they will find an article about 10 questions to ask if you're considering a Christian college. And it will give you a lot of insight of what to ask those recruiters and things. If you really want to know what's happening on the institution before you dump $80,000 to $100,000 of debt to get your kids what you think is a Christian education, but maybe brainwashing against Christianity.
Yep. Dr. John West, Stockholm Syndrome Christianity. Get the book. It's important. Thank you for your voice, sir. Great to have you back. I hope we can again soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, welcome back in. You guys that are Harumphers, I apologize. Yesterday I did not have a brand new Harumph Society posted because I took the Easter holiday off. I think you'll forgive that. I decided not to write something on Easter Sunday, but rather spend it with my family. However, tomorrow we will have a brand new edition of the Harumph Society. So if you have not signed up for the Harumph Society yet, this would be, trust me when I tell you, because I'm on super secret assignment today, trust me when I tell you tomorrow, it's going to be worth your time to be subscribed, because I'm going to share with you some stuff about my super secret assignment that I can't write here, but I will have for you tomorrow exclusively at the Harumph Society. So go to chrisstigall.com and get yourself signed up, and it'll pop up right in your email box. Let's get to some other stories that I just didn't have time to get to today. As many as 2,000 fired federal probationary workers who filed complaints with the Office of Special Counsel have had their cases dismissed as lacking merit. Yes, it turns out it is not a God-granted privilege to work for the federal government. And when they've decided that your time is up, your time is up. 2,000 federal workers who were dismissed, they're still dismissed. So that's good news. A Democrat judge has resigned after a suspected Tren de Aragua gangbanger has been arrested at his home. This from the Daily Caller. A New Mexico Democrat judge resigning after an illegal migrant suspected of being Tren de Aragua gang member arrested at his residence. This guy called Dona Ana, that's the magistrate judge in Dona Ana, a Judge Jose Joel Cano, resigned from the bench shortly after somebody called Ortega Lopez was arrested by federal authorities in March, according to the Albuquerque Journal. Now, if this guy had been a federal district judge, he probably would have stayed the course. Or maybe this guy, now that he's resigned as a magistrate judge, maybe now he'll run for Congress and try to spring this Tren de Aragua. Can you imagine a magistrate judge is harboring a Tren de Aragua gangbanger illegal alien in his home? A magistrate judge. This is the Democrats, though. Doesn't surprise us, does it really? I mean, they'll spend all their time and money going down to El Salvador to spring one gangbanger. Why wouldn't you harbor them in your own home? You know, for years we have been encouraging Democrats to take in these illegals into their own homes. Maybe this judge is just making good on it. Anyway, it's an amazing story. Donald Trump says he will attend Pope Francis's funeral. I think we suspected that would be the case. Remember the story of Senator Warnock? I call it the Lord of the Rings law firm down there. Ossoff and Warnock, the two senators of Georgia. Weirdest pair ever to represent what should be a red state. Remember he was living rent-free in a big, fat, luxury home courtesy of his church? When it comes to the lavish, this from Free Beacon, $1 million Atlanta home where Raphael Warnock has lived rent-free since 2023. The Georgia Democrat can't expect to have his cake and eat it too, said an ethics watchdog yesterday. Warnock's lavish DeKalb County home came equipped with a plethora of luxury accommodations, including a 100-bottle wine fridge, because who doesn't need it, a Bluetooth-enabled cooking range, and remote-controlled privacy curtains. The senator hasn't paid a penny out of his own pocket to live there because the church where he serves as a part-time pastor is footing the bill. That was originally reported by the Washington Free Beacon, and it's been a great deal for Warnock, but it violates Senate ethics rules that limit how much lawmakers can accept from outside employment. So, he got caught. But again, Democrats just get caught. I mean, I suppose if he had taken in Tren de Aragua gangbangers into the $1 million rent-free home, maybe he would have been given a pass. I don't know. The FCC scrutinizing DEI policies at CBS. Poor CBS. They're trying desperately, I think, still to say... Fast Eddie, aren't they still trying to sell? Are they still selling, merging with... I forget what it was. I'm trying to remember what CBS was trying to buy. Anyway, whatever it is they were trying to do, I think they're trying to sell or buy or merge. I don't even remember anymore. Do you? What CBS was attempting to do? Because Trump's been threatening to sue them forever, and they've been talking about maybe settling because they want to get all this lawsuit business off the books to do some kind of business. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, there was somebody, I think there was a larger company that was going to buy them, that was going to buy the Paramount name and kind of all those assets.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was in preparation for.
That's right. They want to sell off Paramount or something. But and Trump's suing them, and the FCC has been scrutinizing their DEI policies. Well, now they're settling in an anti-white discrimination case. CBS Studios will settle a case brought by a script coordinator who accused the company of using illegal racial quotas to discriminate against straight white men. How do you do? This is the first settlement that I know of. They don't tell us how much, but lawyers for both sides informed the court that they reached an agreement Friday, according to the Hollywood Reporter. Oh, at least $500,000 was sought. So this might be the first cracker, honky, to get a $500,000 settlement just for being white. And then you probably heard Kristi Noem's purse was snatched here in Washington, D.C. $3,000 cash she had in the thing. You know, just standard walking around money. No, she said she was going to buy gifts with it. She was on her way to do some other things with the cash, and her purse was stolen. And Bob Red Light Menendez, his poor wife, Nadine, convicted Monday of teaming up with her husband to accept the gold bars and put them in the coat. So, just another day here in D.C. I'll be back here at our D.C. desk tomorrow with special in-studio guests, and I'll tell you a little more about my secret assignment. I hope you have a great day. Again, check out the Harump Society. Sign up, chrisstigall.com, and we'll have it in your email box tomorrow. Have a great day.
So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.